All right, so we'll say good morning. A lot to do today. Today's daf is Tzadik Daled 94. We are picking up on 93. 93b, Tzadik Gimel Amud Beis at the Mishnah. The Mishnah is approximately 15 lines up from the bottom. Nitas ala ar. We'll say, here we go. Let's say you have sacrificial blood, specifically chatas blood, that splatters on a hide. Ar means leather, but in this context it means the hide of the animal. Achlo hufshat, if before the hide has been removed, inoton kibus, so the hide does not require any type of laundering. However, mishu hufshat, ton tibus Rabbi Yehuda. But once the hide has been removed from the animal, then ultimately again it does require kibus, it does require laundering. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Eliezer says, no, af mishu hufshat inoton kibus. Rabbi Elazar says even once the hide has been removed, ultimately it does not require any kind of laundering. We'll see what that machlokes says in the Gemara. Elo, makom adam, so we'll say, so now there's an add-on over here. The Masoras Hashas adds on the words, not the Masoras, I'm sorry, the Shittim Nekubet says, Kibus eino ta'un, eino ta'un kibus ela makom hadam. So we'll say it is only the spot on the whether it's the beged or whether it's the art, it's the hide, only the spot ultimately again where the actual blood is. That is the only spot which requires kibus. V'davar shehurai lekabel tuma. Furthermore, again, I will say the blood is only, or I should say, only an item that is capable of receiving tuma has a din of kibos, royally kibos, and has to be something ultimately that is fit to be laundered. Echara beged ve'echara sak ve'echara or tu'unin kibos. Whether it's a garment, beged, sak means sackcloth, or means leather, ultimately requires kibos if chatos blood splatters on it. Va'kibos b'makom kadosh. And I will say furthermore again, the laundering of the clothing, or actually the laundering of the item with the sacrificial blood on it, must be in a sanctified area, meaning i.e. inside of the Beis Hamikdash. Ushviras kli chares b'makom kadosh. We'll say similarly again, if you have a kli chares, if you have an earthenware utensil that you cooked a chatos in, so remember again, because there's no way to kasher kli chares, no way to kasher earthenware, so we smash the earthenware vessel once it has the chatos absorptions. So too again, if you're going to smash that vessel has to be smashed in a sanctified area, i.e. inside the Beis Hamikdash. Umarika ushtifa b'klina choshes. But we'll say similarly again, if you have a copper vessel that has been used again for some type of sacrificial item as well. So now it has an absorption. Now differences with copper is that copper can be purged, right? Copper can be kashered. So we'll say that's called marika ushtifa, the washing out of the utensil. So where is that done? B'makom kodesh. Ultimately, again, that also has to be done within a sanctified area. And Mishnah ends off by saying, Zechomer bechatos mikotche hakadoshim. So now the Mishnah ends off by saying, this din of kibus, this obligation to launder an item which has come in contact with chatos blood, obligation to launder, is a stringency that chatos has over other kodshe kadoshim. Good. Says the Gemara. So we'll say, where do we know all of these details from that we mentioned in the Mishnah? Because we learned beged ainli ela beged. So we'll say when the pasuk over here says, the pasuk says kol asher yiga bibsara yikdash v'asher yiza midama ala beged asher yaza ala techabes makom kadosh. So we'll say this obligation to launder an article of clothing on which chatas blood has splattered is a biblical obligation. The Torah says it explicitly. But the Torah only phrases it in the context of beged. Of beged, ainli ela beged, minayin the rabbos or mishovshat. How do I know that it applies to the hide of an animal after it's been removed from the animal itself? Talmud Omar, asher yazeh aleha techabes. Yochol shani mar be'ar. So we'll say, I might have achlohofshat. I might have thought that maybe it also comes to include a hide, even before the hide has been removed from the actual animal. That if chatas blood gets onto it, ultimately again, you have to go ahead and launder it as well. Talmud Lomar beged. Therefore, the pasuk says beged. Ma beged haroi lekabel tuma. Just like I will say, a beged is something that is fit to ultimately become tamei. Av kol haroi lekabel tuma. So too, will say this halacha only applies to items which are fit lekabel tuma. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. These are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar says beged ainli ela beged. So we'll say so. In Rabbi Yehuda's model, and it's going to be very important, Rabbi Yehuda's model, the only type of beged that is subject to this, what we'll call chatas blood law, which is the law that says that if chatas blood gets on the beged, ultimately, again, it requires kibus, it requires laundering. That is only a beged that is ro'i lekabel tumah, that is fit to receive tumah. We call ro'i lekabel tumah. Okay, that's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar says, beged, inni ela beged. I only know that this din applies to a beged. Minayin the rabbos, sak, top of tzadik dalid, v'chomini begadim. How do I know that it applies to a sak, to sackcloth, and to other forms of clothing? Talmud lomar, asher ala techabes. Yochol shani mar ba'ar mishhuvshat. I am at a thought that maybe it applies to a hide, even once the hide has been removed from the animal. Talmud lomar beged. Therefore, the pasuk says beged. Ma beged davra hamakabel tuma. We'll say just like a beged is something which does become tamei, or I should say differently, but just like a beged is something which is fit the kabel tuma. Af kol davra hamakabel tuma. So we'll say any item that is makabel tuma is subject to the chatas blood law. So we'll say, if you notice over here, we have a very nuanced difference between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Elazar. Both agree that the word beged comes to teach us that the halacha is that it's coming to teach us the context in which we'll call the chatas blood law applies. What's the chatas blood law? That if chatas blood gets on something, you have to launder it. The shaila is what? What's the something? So let's review this. So in Rabbi Yehuda's model, it's any item hara'ui lekabel tumah, any item that is capable of receiving tumah. In Rabbi Elazar's model, it's any item that is mekabel tumah. So here's the nuanced difference: potentially mekabel tumah and is mekabel tumah. Ra'ui means it's capable of receiving tumah. So mekabel tumah means it is mekabel tumah. So that's the Gemara. My man, I suppose that at first glance it sounds like they're saying the same thing, but obviously they're arguing. So they're saying two different things. So what's the machlok? Yes, my benayu. Amar Abaye said, matlis pechusa mishalosh ikaben. So listen to this. The nafkamina is if you have a piece of cloth that is less than 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths. What does this mean? Man da'amar ra'ui ha nami ra'ui di'i boi chashiv alei. So we'll say, now listen to this. Technically speaking, is this item ra'ui lekabel tumah? Is it potentially capable of being mekabel tumah? So the answer is, technically it is, although it sounds like it's too small, because generally for an item, for fabric, it has to be at least 3 finger breadths by 3 finger breadths in order to go ahead and be mekabel tumah. In this case, it's less than that. So how is it roy? We'll say if you were to decide that you were going to use that patch of fabric to go ahead and patch a garment, I'm not using it as a garment, I'm using it as a patch, then einach hinami, it could become chashuv, and therefore would be mekabel tumah. So therefore, it's ra'ui. Technically speaking, it could be made fit to receive tumah if a person has in mind that what they're going to use it as a patch. The boy chashiv alei. Rashi says letakin chaluko. If you have in mind that you want to transform it into a patch, then a patch to your clothing, and ultimately again it could be mekabel tumah. However, man da'amar davar mekabel tumah. But also according to the opinion, it says no. It has to be something that is actively mekabel tumah. Then what? Hamiha lav beis kibulei tumuhu. Then I both say this little piece of fabric is not capable in its current state right now, as is, of being mekabel tumah. So we'll say that's one nafkamina. Rava says there's another nafkamina. Beged shechishev aleh l'tzura ikabena. Listen to this. Another nafkamina is a case of a beged, of a garment, in which you had in mind that you were going to embroider. Your son, the beged is what it is now, but I'm going to embroider on it and make it nicer. So watch this. So we'll say, understand something. The halacha is that an item is only mekabel tumah when it is considered to be in a state of completion. What makes it in a state of completion? When the uman, the person who is crafting it, says what? So, I'm done. When I say that I'm done, so ultimately again it's mekabel tumah. So listen to this interesting case. I have a garment now, or a beged, but I plan on embroidering it. So as I say now, technically speaking, it's not mekabel tumah until after the embroidery is done, because that's when the kli is considered to be done. So watch this. Man da'amar ra'ui. So the man da'amar says, that any beged that is ra'ui, that is capable, that is technically able to be makabel tuma, that is fit makabel tuma, ultimately again is subject to the chatlas blood law. So this beged would fit that criteria. Why? Hanami roi di boy mevatale lemachshavte. Also, because what can you do? You can always say, you know what? I choose against embroidering it. Right? I changed my mind. I'm not going to embroider it. And if you say that, then what? The beged is done now. And if the beged is done now, then halacha l'maaseh is subject to the chatlas blood law. However, man da'amar davar hamakabel tuma hash, right? Davar hamakabel tuma. But the one who says no, in order to be subject to the chatlas blood law, so the object, the garment, the beged has to be makabel tuma now in its present state. Hashta mihalav gvas kabuli tumahi. The Rebbe say in this particular state, so the garment is not really in an actual state of being capable of being makabel tuma. Why? Because at this point my intention is still to embroider it, and because my intention is to embroider it, it's not done, and because it's not done, therefore what? It's not makabel tuma. Rava says, Otzva d'chashiv alei l'katz'a ika benahu. So we'll say Rava comes along and he has another nafkamina. He says Otzva. We'll say if you look at Rashi, it's almost right across. Rashi says Otzva, shatiach le'echol alav o lishkov alav beruban min ha'or. So this is actually an interesting case. This is a scenario over here where Otzva also means like a large shatiach, like a large piece of a large garment that you could often go ahead and spread out on the ground, and people would either like eat on it, I guess like a picnic blanket, or you would sleep on it. So the Gemara says over here like this: what happens if you have this otzva, this large garment that you're going to spread out, but you have in mind to cut it back a little bit, to trim it. Have in mind to trim it. So I say, remember again, it's the same idea. Anytime that you still have further things you're going to do to a particular item, then it's not finished. If it's not finished, it's not makabel tuma. So watch this. Man damar roi. So the man damar says that any beged that is roi lekabel tuma, so ultimately is subject to the chatlas blood law. Hanami ruuya. Then technically speaking, we'll say this is also roi. Why is this roi? Because you can have it, you can change your mind. You can say, you know what? I'm not going to trim it. I'm going to leave it as is. If you leave it as is, then what Rabbi saying? Then it's a finished product. And if it's a finished product, then what? Then ultimately, again, it's makabel tuma. If it's makabel tuma, then it's subject to the chatlas blood law. So the Gemara says, right. Man davar makabel tuma, halav makabel tuma, ad demiktsole. So we'll say, but again, if you hold that it actually, actively, now, presently has to be makabel tuma, then this item does not fit the bill. Why not? Because halach l'maaseh, since it's still going to be trimmed down, therefore it's not a finished product, and because it's not a finished product, it's not makabel tuma. If it's not makabel tuma, it's not subject to the chatlas blood law. I've had time Rabbi Shimon Menasya Omer Otzva shechashav alei lekatza tahora ad shiyaktziena. And I will say the Gemara just brings this as a proof. Rabbi Shimon Menasya says that halacha l'maaseh otzva, this very large beged that you have in mind to trim, ultimately is not makabel tuma until the trimming is done, and ultimately the beged is considered to be complete. So we'll say, so therefore the Gemara ends off with this machlokes between Rabbi Huda and Rabbi Elazar, and the fundamental machlokes seems to be rooted in what? Seems to be rooted in the idea as to whether or not, in order to be subject to the chatlas blood law, does the item have to be actively, presently makabel tuma, or just have the capacity to be makabel tuma? Rabbi Yehuda is saying all it needs is the capacity. Rabbi Elazar is saying it actually has to be makabel tuma. Good. Ein ton kibus. So let's remember again. So the Mishnah said only the spot on which the blood falls is it requires kibus. Menahani mili. So we'll say, where do we know this from? The Tan Rabbanon Yochol Nitas Am Miktas Begi Yekol Begi Ton Kibus. To which the Gemara says as follows: one might have thought that once blood falls on the beged, right? Maybe the entire beged requires laundering. In other words, not just the spot where the blood fell, but maybe the entire area, maybe the entire beged. Talmud Lomar Asher Yazeh. Therefore, the pasuk says, on that which was sprinkled, or that which will be sprinkled. Lo amarti lecha ela makom dam bilva. So also we learn from the phrase Asher Yazeh that it's only the actual spot where the blood falls that requires kibus. The rest of the beged does not require kibus. So the Gemara goes weiter. Davar shu roi lekabel tuma. So the Gemara says, stomach Rabbi Yehuda, stomach Rabbi Yehuda. So roi lekibos lemiut. So I'm sorry. So stomach Rabbi Yehuda. So we'll say so. Stam Mishnah ultimately again reflects the view of Rabbi Yehuda that in order to be subject to the chatas blood law, it has to be a davar that is fit roi lekabel tuma. So we'll say, remember again, this goes back to what Machlokes Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Lazar. The Gemara seems to be saying over here that the halacha really follows Rabbi Yehuda. That ultimately, again, what? As long as the item is ra'ui lekabel tuma, as long as technically speaking, it could be made fit lekabel tuma, even if now it is actually not mekabel tuma, but if it can be made ra'ui lekabel tuma relatively easily, then halacha l'maaseh is subject to the chatas blood law. Ra'ui lekibos lemiute davar griduhu. So we'll say, what does it mean that it's fit for laundering? This comes to exclude something that is cleaned by scraping. We'll discuss this in greater depth in just a little bit. So echad habeged ve'echad hasak. So we'll remember again, now next the Mishnah said that both a garment as well as sackcloth and leather are all subject to the chatas blood law. And if chatas blood splatters on any of these items, then what? Then halacha l'maisa, the object requires kibus. To which the Gemara says, l'memra, do arbar kibusu. Now this begins an interesting sugya, which is going to take us on to Amud Beis. Is that to say that leather is subject to the law of kibus? That leather, that you're able to launder leather. So I'm going to ask a question on that. Remember who says the Gemara. Meaning, was like clearly, let's take a step back. Clearly, the Mishnah indicates that leather is launderable, right? How do we know that? Because it's part of the list, right? Because remember again, the Mishnah said echad habeged, ve'echad hasak, ve'echad ha'ar tu'unin kibus. So beged rabose means a garment, sak means a sackcloth, or means leather. If chatas blood gets on it, then what? Then halacha l'maisa, it is subject to kibus. It is subject to laundering. So says the Gemara, the memra do arbar kibusu. Are you telling me then that leather is subject to laundering? Or minhu is a kasha. Get ready for this. Haisa alav lash leshas. We'll say, let's say again, this is the Shabbos case. This is actually interesting halacha. Let's say there's some lash leshas that gets onto your garment. We'll say lash leshas means dirt. Some dirt that gets on. Rashi says over here, Haisa alav lash leshas. The Mesechus Shabbos Tanan, Haisa al hakar shal beged gil shal rok, o shal tzoa. So we'll say the case over here is, let's say I have a kar shal beged. I have a pillow or a cushion that is made out of material, and some shmutz gets on it. So what's the halacha? Mekancha bismartut. You could wipe it off with a rag. So you could wipe it off with a rag. Now Rashi points out over here, mekan cho bismirtut b'Shabbos ve'ino nosin ala mayim lechlosa. But say what you can't do is put water on it, ultimately again to clean it up. La vira b'pnei shumechabes, because both say that's laundering. V'kibos av malachahu, and both say laundering ultimately again is one of the 39 malachos. Hainu malavin. V'mhaisa lash leshes al karsh. Okay, so both say that's the first. So that's the first case. So case number one is I have dirt on a cloth pillow. So what can I do? I can't put water on it. Because putting water on it would be the equivalent of laundering on Shabbos. What I can do is I can take a dry rag and remove the schmutz to the best of my ability. However, al shel or, what happens again if I have a leather pillow or a leather cushion and schmutz gets on it? What can I do? No sin ala mayim ad shetechala. Both say in that context, what could I do? I could pour water on the leather cushion until the schmutz goes away. So what do you see over here? Rashi, look at the rest of that Rashi. Here's what's interesting. The fact that I'm allowed to go ahead and put water on the leather tells me what? That there is no laundering by leather. Because remember again, if there was laundering by leather, then what? Then I would not be permitted to put water on it on Shabbos. See, I can't put water on a material cushion because the water seeps in and the water launders. But apparently, again, the Brisa says I can't put water on a leather item because leather is not subject to kibus. There's no laundering by leather. The problem is this poses a direct contradiction to our Mishnah. Because our Mishnah said that leather is subject to laundering. V'haraya, if blood of the chatos gets on the leather, it's subject to kibus. So which one is it? Amar Abaye. Abaye says, Lo kashya harabanan ha'achirim. So we'll say to which Abaye says, it's not a contradiction, two different opinions. This one is the Rabbanan, one is Achirim. This sanyo, habeged v'hasak mechabso. Suppose we have a brayz that says as follows: beged, which is a material garment, sackcloth, mechabso. Ultimately, again, is subject to the laws of kibus by dam chatos. Hakli v'ha'ar. We'll say when it comes to a utensil, or for that matter, leather, upon which dam chatos splattered, migarero. Ultimately, again, you scrape the blood off. So we'll say, you see over here that's what? That according to the Rabbanon, leather is not subject to kibus. On the other hand, achirim omrim, habeged v'asak v'ha'ar, mechabso. When it comes, we'll say, to a beged, sack, and leather, it in fact is subject to the laws of laundering, v'hakli megarero, and ultimately, again, the kli you scrape. So we'll say, so very simply, we have a machlokes. The Rabbanon say that leather is not subject to kibus. Achirim say the leather is subject to kibus. Therefore, our Mishnah, which says that leather is subject to kibus, seems to reflect the view of the Achirim. So the Gemara says, well, if that's the case, Kiman Azla Hada Amar Rav Chiya bar Ashi. So we'll say, so how do we understand the following statement? Listen to this. Zimnin Sagin Hava Ka'imna Kamei Rav. So we'll say, Rav Chiya bar Ashi says, many times I was before Rav, and what happens? V'shach shichi le masani b'maya. And I used to wash his shoes in water. They both say, now this is taking place on Shabbos. This thing was on Shabbos. So Rechir Ba'ashi says, many times I was before Rav, Rav's shoes got dirty, and he used to wash his shoes on Shabbos. Shoes are made from leather. He's washing them ultimately again on Shabbos. So he's laundering leather on Shabbos. So whose opinion does this reflect? Kiman Kirabbanan. We'll say it's not a big deal. It reflects the view of the Rabbanan who say that what? That ein kibus ba'ar, that ultimately again it must be that what? That there is no laundering. There is no laundering of leather. Leather is not subject to kibus. Remember again, the Rabbanan say leather is not subject to kibus. Achirim say leather is subject to kibus. So it must be ultimately again that Rav and Rav Chiya bar Ashi have like the Rabbanan. Amar Rav says, Umi ika leman da amar or lav bar kibusu. So Rabbi saying, Rava now wants to turn this whole thing on its head. So Rabbi saying, he says, is it possible? Is there actually someone who holds that leather is not subject to laundering, or is there really someone who holds that way? Vaksiv, but the pasuk explicitly says, "V'habeged o ashasi o ha'orev all kol klior asher tuchubas." Rabbi say, but the pasuk says quite explicitly, right? By saras. Right, and whether again it's the beged, the shasi, the erev, the or asher techabes, the sar mehem anega. So we'll say, you see, Torah explicitly talks about what? Talks about laundering by a leather garment. Now, granted, this is in the context of saras, but if you could launder a leather garment by saras, that means what? Leather is subject to laundering. So we'll say, so what's the pshat? So the Gemara says, Amar Ela Amar Rava, Kra umas nisin berachim. So we'll say, it must be that the pasuk over here that speaks about the fact that leather can be laundered, and the Mishnah by over here, our Mishnah by Dam Chatos, that says that leather can be laundered, must be talking about what? Must be talking about soft leather. Rashi says, "Berachin divrei hakol v'chipalag achim rabbanan mekasher." We'll say it must be that they're talking about soft leather. When it comes to soft leather, everyone agrees that it is subject to laundering. Keep pligi. We'll say, what's the kasha? Bekashin, hardened leather. We'll say cushion is, so when it's hardened leather, that's the machlokis Rabbanon and the Achirim. Rabbanon will say that it is not subject to kibus. Achirim will say it is subject to kibus. But when we're dealing with soft leather, which is what our Mishnah is talking about, which is what the pasuk is talking about by tzaras, ultimately again everyone agrees that it is subject to kibus, to laundering. V'amar Rav Chiya. But one second, I will say Zimnin. Let's go back for just a moment. Rabbi Chiya said Zimnin Sagin Hava Kamina Kamei Derav V'Shach Shichi LeMasanei B'Maya. I will say, but one second. But we learned ultimately before that Rabbi Chiya said many times I was before Rav on Shabbos, and I used to wash his leather shoes in water on Shabbos. So we'll say, so what's so here you see that ultimately again he's laundering leather shoes. To which the Gemara says Bekashin Ukirabanan. We'll say it must be that what? it must be that we're talking about hard leather according to the Rabbanon. Because we'll say hard leather according to the Rabbanon is not subject to kibus. So it must be again when Reb Chia is laundering Rav's shoes, it must have been made of hard leather, and they held like the Rabbanon who said that hardened leather is not subject to kibus. So Gemara says, 1 second. Hada Amar Rava. Rava then went back and said as follows. He says, Lav Milsihi de Amri. I want to scratch what I just said before. I'm sorry. Hada Amar Rava. Lav Milsihi de Amri. Neiku Neimalei Lekra. Dechi Ksivin Berach and Ksivin. So we'll say, I think, who's to say that when the pasuk was said before, the Neimalei Lekra. Dechi Ksivin Berach and Ksivin. Milo Askinon. Bichli Achslagya. Achsalgia. Perhaps we're dealing about, say, achsalgia means literally again leather that's boiled in an effort to make it hard. I guess, yeah, leather that's boiled. Used to boil the leather to stiffen it. So the Gemara says that comes from overseas. The ka'amar achmana nibai kibos, and yet the Torah still says that what? It requires kibos. So we'll say now Rav is going ahead and reneging on what he said before. He made the distinction between rachin and kashin, soft leather, which everyone agrees is subject to kibos, hardened leather, which is a machlokes between the Rabbanon, and ultimately achirim. Achirim say it is subject to kibos, Rabbanon say it's not subject to kibos. So Rav says maybe not. Maybe we're dealing with hardened leather as well. And the Torah still says that what? That it requires kibos. Ella Amar Rava. Rather, Rava says as follows. Saras. See, I will say, the fact that the Torah says that a leather garment afflicted with saras requires kibos is not really a raya one way or the other. Why not? So, kevan de megufa kaparcha mechal le umashvi le rach. So, we'll say, now Rava says that when you have a garment that is afflicted with saras, we'll say the presence of the saras lesion itself softens the leather. So that even if the leather ultimately is hard leather, it'll still be subject to kibus by tsaras, because the tsaras itself softens the leather, at least on the spot where the tsaras itself is. So the Gemara says, Amar Rava, I kashili, ha kashili. If we're going to have a question, here's my question. I'll say, Amadeus. Karim vikistos dirachaninu. So we're talking about, look here, Rashi for just a moment. Karim vikistos dirachaninu. The ein osin ela me arach sheyehi noach lishkavav. So people say, under normal circumstances, if you're making pillows and cushions, let's say again we're making it out of leather. So what kind of leather is going to be made out of? Soft leather. You're not making pillows and cushions out of hard leather, only soft leather. Yet, so remember again, what did we say about soft leather just before we said soft leather? Everyone agrees that it is subject to kibos. Everyone agrees in that case. So now we have a problem. Utnan. We'll say here's the problem. What did the Brisa say before? That for Hilchos Shabbos, if you have a cushion or a pillow that is made from leather, everyone agrees that what? That you could pour water on it. We'll say, how could that be? If everyone before said that soft leather is subject to kibos, the act of pouring water on a leather cushion on Shabbos should be malabin, should be kibos, it should be aser. Yet the Brisa said it's mutter. Amarava. Rather, Rabbi says something very interesting. Kol kibos de les be kiskus losh me kibos. We'll say, so Rava comes along and says as follows: that Allah Lamaisa, in order for Hilchos Shabbos to violate, for Hilchos Shabbos purposes, in order to violate the malacha of malabein, of laundering, of kibos, pouring water is not enough. The malacha of laundering, I will say, is rubbing the garment one side on the other. Therefore, any act of just pouring water, by definition, is not kibus. That's what he means. Kol kibus deles be kiskus. What's kiskus? I will say second line from the top in Rashi. Mishav sheif tzidozeh al tzidozeh. That's right. You take the garment and you rub one side against the other. Kiderach hamachabis begadim oches abeged b'shtei yadav mishav sheif lo shmei kibus. Rashi says hilchach no sin alav mayim at shetichla shari ba'or ba'afilu rach. So we'll say. So therefore, again, Rava comes along and says that Allah Hilchos Shabbos, so kibos is not accomplished by simply pouring water. Kibos is pouring water and rubbing the garment one side against the next. So because in this case, all I'm doing is pouring the water, but I'm not rubbing the sides one against the other. Therefore what? Therefore, halacha l'maisa, it is not problematic. I v'hada amar Rav Chia bar Ashi. But yet, Rabbi, we keep coming back to this. But yet, that's what Rav Chia bar Ashi said. Zimnen sagin hava ka'imna kamei Rav. But yet, he says so many times I was standing before Rav. V'shach shichi le masanai b'maya, and I used to rinse his shoes in water. Shichshuch in aval kibus lo. So I say, what do you see from here? You could to rinse the leather shoes is fine. But kibus, Rabbi say kibus that we would define as what? As rubbing the shoes, scraping the shoes, that ultimately again would be problematic. So the Gemara says, 1 second, let's analyze this. Iberakinu kedivrei hakol. So we'll say, if we're talking about over here soft leather, so if it's soft leather, again, it would seem to be that everybody would agree, based on what we just said before, that as long as you're not rubbing anything, that ultimately, again, it should be fine. Or we'll say it could be a case of where what? Where it was hard leather, and remember again, hard leather, even according to the Achirim, hard leather, which is normally subject to kibos, according to Achirim, apparently, again, if there's no kiskus, if there's no shifshuf, if there's no rubbing, it should be fine. Ihachi, if that's the case, beged nami. So I say, I don't understand, why doesn't this apply ultimately, again, to a beged? But remember, again, going back to what the Brisa said before, the Brisa said that if I go ahead and on Shabbos, I get my beged dirty, my shirt gets dirty. So remember, again, what did the Brisa say? The Brisa said that I'm not even allowed to pour water on it. But I don't understand, based on what we just said, what's the halacha, I will say? That the only time on Shabbos that you violate the malacha of kibus is when? When there's a rubbing of the garment. But just pouring water should be fine. But yet, why do we learn that you can't pour water on a beged? Oh, I'll tell you why. Beged, shriyaso ze kibuso. We'll say a beged is different. Because by a beged, the act of soaking a beged is in and of itself a form of kibus. So we'll say by other materials, or by other items like a cushion. So we'll say, so there you need the shichshuch. Shoes, you need a shichshuch. Sometimes a beged, a shirt, even just soaking it will remove the stain. Therefore, by definition, pouring water on it on Shabbos will be a violation of malabe. So Rava l'tamei da'amar Rava zarak sudar l'mayim chayiv. So it's actually an interesting case now. Rava goes according to his reasoning because he says that if you go ahead and you put a cloak into water, zarak sudar l'mayim chayiv, the act of just putting the cloak into the water itself makes you chayiv from a labe. Why, Rabbi said? Because for a beged, just simply soaking it is a form of kibos, is a form of laundering, which will be asran Shabbos. And this is actually very interesting. Zarak pishtan l'mayim chayiv. Similarly, if you throw flax seeds into water, you're also chayiv. So bishlama sudar avid kibos. So we'll say, I understand why if I go ahead and what? Why if I go ahead and put a garment in water, then I'm going to be chayiv. I'm going to be chayiv. Why, Rabbi? Because that's kibos. Because the act of simply placing the cloak into water is in and of itself an act of laundering. Ela zera pishtan my taima. I will say, why if I put flax seeds in water? Ultimately, again, is that a violation of Shabbos? V'chi tema mishum de mikdach. Or maybe you'll say because if you put flax seeds into water, they sprout. So I'll say, so maybe again, there's like an issue of like planting over here, facilitating growth, so they're going to sprout. Well, if that's the case, Iachi chiti usari nami. But say if that's the case, then why do you choose flax seeds? I'm going to be chayav for putting, wheat or barley seeds into water as well, because they also sprout when introduced into water. To which the Gemara says, Hanach islahu riri. So we'll say, here's the difference. The difference is that apparently flax seeds, I will say, when you put them into water, so if you look at Rashi, islahu riri, zera pishtamamai nafka rira mine umedabki adal. We'll say riri literally means like saliva. What it means in this context is apparently when you put flax seeds into water, they become like sticky. They emit like some type of saliva substance, which causes the seeds to stick together. To which the Gemara says, we'll see what this means in just a moment. Ihachi shlachim nami. Well, if that's the case again, so I don't understand. If you put raw hides in water, raw hides also develop like this sticky film when placed into water. So that should also be problematic. To which the Gemara answers, Hassam ka'avid lisha. We'll say, here's the difference. With the flax seeds, we'll say what we're concerned about is as follows. When they develop like this saliva-y, mucusy emission, they all come together. When they all come together, I will say what I'm concerned about is that it'll come to an act of kneading with a K, right? Of kneading the seeds together. That, and I will say, now remember, Lisha Losh is one of the 39 malachos on Shabbos. That concern doesn't apply ultimately again to hides, because people don't need hides together. Apparently flax seeds, people will knead together. Hides, they do not. Darash Rava darshant. Mutter lechabes minal b'Shabbos. So we'll say Rava darshant, you are permitted to go ahead and clean, literally launder, min al b'Shabbos, a shoe on Shabbos. A shoe on Shabbos. So we'll say, to which the Gemara says, Amr Papa Rava, Va'amar Rav Chiya bar Ashi, Zimnin Sagin Hava Kamina, Dukamei Derav. So yet again, Rav Chiya bar Ashi said many times I was before Rav on Shabbos, V'shach shichi le masanoi b'maya. And I went ahead and what? I used to rinse his shoes in water. Shich shuch in, aval kibus lo. He rinsed it, Rabbosai, but he didn't launder it. Hadar uki Rava Amora alei. We'll say after this entire episode, Rava went ahead and appointed a new Amora, the Darash, and he said, Dvarim shamarti lifnechem ta'oseim. That which I said before was mistaken. Ta'oseim biyadi barm kach amru shichshach mutar kibus aser. So we'll say it turns out that by leather shoes he said that it is only shichshach, rinsing, which is mutar, but kibus will be aser. So we'll say, so bottom line, halacha lemaisa, what do we say about leather? Both remember again, all of this was we got a lot into Hilchos Shabbos, but leaving Hilchos Shabbos aside, because that's not really our primary preoccupation right now. What we're more focused on, both say, is what's the halacha when it comes to leather, legabe chatos, blood. Remember again, the Mishnah, we thought it was a pretty open and shut case. The Mishnah told me that halacha lemaisa, if chatos blood gets on a leather garment, it is subject to the din of kibus. Yet again, from the Gemara, we see homachlokes of leather, soft leather, hard leather. So which one, hard leather? So which one is it? So listen to this. So the Rambam in Hilchos Masiyar Karbanos Perek Ches Halacha Beis writes as follows: Echad habeged, ve'echad ha'or harach, ve'echad hasak tunin kibus. So let's see what the Rambam already says. What type of leather are we talking about, which requires laundering if chatas blood comes in contact with it? Only soft leather. Only soft leather is subject to kibus. Aval ha'or ha'kasha harehu keitz v'goreit hadam me'alav. Both say thick leather, or I should say not really thick leather, stiff leather, or hard leather. Both say ultimately again is not subject to kibus. So what happens if dam chatas splatters on hardened leather? What's the halacha? Gorer hadam me'alav. You scrape the blood off. So again, that has how the Rambam paskins. The din of kibus only applies to soft leather. If chatas blood gets on hardened leather, it's not subject to kibus. You don't launder it. Instead, you scrape it. Good. Weiter. Kibus b'makom kodesh. Remember again, the next thing the Mishnah said is that the act of laundering has to be done inside of the Beis Hamikdash, or somewhere in the courtyard. So the Gemara says, so where do we know this? From Tan Rabbanon, tichabes. The pasuk says it shall be laundered. Tichabes b'makom kodesh. The pasuk says it shall be laundered in a holy place. It's pretty explicit. Shaviras kli cheres. I will say how do I know the case of kli cheres that absorbed carbonic absorptions that has to be broken? How do I know that has to be broken inside the Beis Hamikdash? Talmud Lomar o kli cheres asher tavushal ba yishaber. Good. So Rabbi said what the Gemara is pointing out of here. Rabbi says, remember the first pasuk that talks about the idea that the beged that gets chatas blood on it has to be laundered b'makom kadosh, has to be laundered in a holy place. Immediately following after that is the pasuk about kli cheres. The fact that the vav u kli cheres links into the previous pasuk tells me that just as the beged which has chatas blood has to be laundered in a holy place, so too when the kli cheres has to be shattered, it also has to be shattered in a holy place. So the mariko shtifa b'kli nechoshes man. We're reading about mariko and shtifa. How do I know that if I have a copper utensil that has to be rinsed and washed, that also has to be done in the Beis Hamikdash? Talmud Lomar v'im b'kli nechoshes bushala umarak v'shutaf b'mayim. I'll say again, it's the same vav. The vav keeps connecting each of these episodes to the first episode, which is the episode of the beged which gets the chatas blood. So the vav connects all of these situations to tell me that just as the beged which has chatas blood has to be cleaned inside the Beis Hamikdash, so too the copper utensil which has the carbonic assumptions has to be, the earthenware utensil which has the carbonic absorptions has to be broken inside the Beis Hamikdash. So too the copper utensil which requires meriku shtifa washing also has to be done inside the Beis Hamikdash. Zeh chomer bechatos. So remember again, the Mishnah said that ultimately again this is the chumrah that a chatas has over other kachei kadashim, that if chatas blood splatters on a garment it requires kibus, to which the Gemara says v'suleka, are there no other stringencies that a chatas has over other kachei kadashim? Va'ika shenichnas dama lifnai v'lifnim. So we'll say, well, 1 second, there's the concept ultimately again, there is the case of where if you have a case of chatas blood, I will say, that goes inside of the Beis Hamikdash. Chatas is the only carbon that has its blood taken inside the Beis Hamikdash, which is by Yom Kippur. So that's a chumrah that chatas has over other kachei kadoshim. To which the Gemara says, "Bechatas achitzonos." We're talking about the outer chatos, shem nichnas dama lefnai v'lefnim psula. To which the Gemara says, "Rabbi Akiva, dama kol dam shenichnasu leichal lechaper psula." So we're talking about a chatas chitzona. So the chatas is done on the outside. I will say, "Inachinami." If you bring the blood inside, the blood is invalid. Like Rabbi Akiva, who holds that any blood, any atonement bloods that are brought inside, ultimately are pasul. Shechei mechaper nachavi krisos. Why don't you say chatas blood has a chumrah over other types of kachei kadashim? In that what? In that it atones for chayve krisos. So we'll say there are certain circumstances, ultimately again, where a chatas will atone for a chi of kares, to which the Gemara says, bechatas d'shmias kol. Well, it says referring over here to the chatas for someone ultimately again who knew eidos but chose not to give that eidos. It's not talking about a kares situation. Why don't you say shekain tu'una arba matanos krebi, right? Why don't you say ultimately again chatas is different, it's more chamer than the rest of kachei kadosh because it requires 4 blood applications. Rabbi Shmuel Silber kol adam tu'una dalamatos adal kranos. Because we'll say ultimately again where it's reflecting the view of Rabbi Shmuel who holds that all blood applications are done 4 times. To which the Gemara says ulatamech ha'ika keren ha'ika etzba ha'ika chuda. But chatas has many other chumras, so we'll say over other karbanos. There's the din ultimately again that chatas, the zrika of a chatas has to be done with the finger, as opposed to other karbanos where you could do zrika even from the kli. There's the idea of chuda, it has to be done on the corner ultimately again of the horn and not on the horn itself. So we'll say ha'ika etzba, to which the Gemara says you're right. We'll say essentially what the Gemara says is you're right. This idea by chatas is not the only chumrah. In other words, the idea that if chatas blood splatters on a garment, it requires kibus, is not the only chumrah that chatas has over other kachei kadashim. Ella chad mitrei telasa chumri naket. Rather, what the Mishnah Rabbi means to say is that what? This chumrah of chatas over other kachei kadashim, that if its blood splatters on a garment, the garment requires kibus. This is one of a number of chumras that chatas has over other forms of kachei kadashim. We'll stop over here for today. We'll pick up tomorrow with the Mishnah.